the traditional model is a business would take a green dollar expense to build a dedicated server. And your cloud infrastructure is completely the opposite. It's a build it and they will come model. And where do you get the funding for the build it and they will come when the business units themselves are going, wait, I'm going to put green dollars to buy this thing, but then other people can use it? It's quite a mind shift, and that's actually quite a difficult battle. Luckily, it's not one I have to fight. That's my boss's problem.
Well, did Citi change the way IT is basically funded then to allow for this?
But it would make it easier. The other one that comes out that's quite interesting, I think, is they want transparency. Every line of business wants to know, break down the costs. I can go into Amazon and I can see every byte transferred has got a cost associated. It's very nominally transparent. But when it comes to billing internally, they go, oh, but I don't want my cost to change. I want transparency, but make it stay the same. So usually they're happier that the cost of your internal cloud service, the cost has gone down so much that they're quite happy with that. But the big battle definitely is changing from a specification fund build model to a build it and they will come. That can be definitely a big shift inside your company. You've got to take care of that one.
Let me make sure I got it straight though on one point that you just said. They say to you, don't make a change. Is that because they don't like the unpredictable nature of on-demand? Like it cost me $50 this month and $3,000 next month, and right, I don't know how to budget that.
Correct.
Right?
A lot of organizations, while they like the concept of pay for what I use, they still come back to, but I'm going to have to know how much it's going to be in my expense budget because I have to plan for it. And it's like, well, wait a minute, what do you want? Do you want to pay for what you use, or do you want to pay a flat budgeted amount per month? It's like they say one thing, but they really need the other thing. And I think it's tough because this is a cultural change. This is something different for them. And I find it most in mid-sized organizations where they're very strict on what I have to spend on a monthly basis. And so while I ideally would like to just pay for what I use, especially if it's less, what if it's more? There isn't that elasticity in their budget just yet, It
raises an interesting point because honestly, from a line of business's procurement, a lot of that is liability.
Yeah.
And if the counterparty is a legitimate entity and the liability clause is there, there's really no objection for why you couldn't move that workload there.
Right.
Nobody wants, as a bank, to be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal saying that your customer's information was lost. Right. But that is often driven by perception. So if you heard that your bank had lost your information because it was running on your favorite shopping site, that would be quite different than if information had been leaked on your favorite news aggregating site. A very famous company in this. If somebody had found that, I should say Bloomberg because I love them, but if Bloomberg, for example, mislaid a transaction or leaked information, that's a very different perception than if it was a shopping site.
Right. Right.
But I think what I'd love you to touch on is we're talking about this as in-prem stuff and running it. The big trend that we're all seeing is the new startup companies are not building software that runs on premises anymore.
Right.
They don't have a data center. They're guys that they wouldn't even get funding from a venture capital company to even build one. So they're building stuff that's cloud services. So it's not a case of should we or shouldn't we. It's like
it's kind of like pretty soon you won't have a choice.
80% of software companies going forward are only producing stuff that you can get access to on the cloud. Like you have to deal with this. It's not optional.
Graham's entirely right. I talk to lots and lots of startups and lots of venture capitalists, and there are startup companies now that are doing very sophisticated applications that they never would have been able to run before. Things around games theory, genetic sequencing, all sorts of things. And these are startups that if they had been funded 10 years ago would have spent $250 million worth of capital to start the business. And it's three guys with laptops working out of a garage. Almost like how Hewlett-Packard started. It's literally three guys working out of a garage. But they're using huge amounts of compute and huge amounts of storage to build all this stuff. And I bring that up because we focused a lot at the beginning of this around cost. And I think that's kind of a traditional way of looking at an evolutionary step, okay? if earlier Graham asked, how many people had iPhones, right? The wealth of applications that live on the iPhone and everything else are a result of this massive revolution in technology. So I think some of the big wins you get from this are not, oh, it's going to save me a little bit of money here, it's going to do this. It frees up a set of budget dollars, yes, but more importantly, it creates a new platform that allows for a new period of innovation to occur that heretofore in the previous way of doing things just didn't exist.
I think that's a real area for development. I mean, I've been following how service providers and telcos are getting into that area. And I think what they're trying to sell is that bursting capability. What's difficult is that it requires managing a kind of hybrid setup. Not only a private cloud, but also public cloud, and how to manage the flows between them. I think that's not been very well resolved at this point. But I think you'll see more of those services. Certainly companies like AT&T or Verizon or Savvis are moving there. But
HP.
Yeah, HP too.
So I've always thought that in that scenario that we just described, to paraphrase the devil's in the details, the devil's in the data. Where's the data, and how do you get it, and how do you burst to more compute capacity, unless you're already running near that cloud.
But if you're a service provider, you have to manage not only the private network, but also maybe several different multi-cloud networks going into your system. And that's fairly complex. There's no standards for that.
Right. You wind up as a customer, you wind up architecting, call it Acme Manufacturing. Acme Manufacturing may have, workload running on their own private cloud or managed by a service provider, and they want to burst that up because they do a huge manufacturing because of the hurricane. So we have a number of, actually not small number, but a reasonable number of customers who do that now, but they've done it in that they have a set of solutions that are designed to do that, and then they burst some amount of workload up to the cloud. But to my colleague's other point, you wind up with a lot of where's the data, and you need to deal with the tiering of the networking to get the data to where the compute capability is. But there are a significant number of people who are starting to do various bursting scenarios.
Okay.
I think it's hard enough to get elastic right and scavenging right. Bursting comes last.
But you also will need to have fairly well standardized service level agreements, just like every company expects to have with a regular network connection. We don't have those yet. It's being worked on. I mean, I think these things are evolving. We'll probably see them in the next couple of years. But so far, it's not quite ready for prime time.